How's it going, guys? Cody back again, dropping yet another video. You haven't heard me say that for a while, have you? And you won't be hearing it for much longer. 4 subscribers short of 15,000. For those that don't know, my channel is getting wiped at 15,000. Deleting videos, deleting the description, just everything's going. People keep asking me why and stuff. I've had a great time. There's been ups and downs. We've been on a journey together, haven't we? I've covered a hell of a lot of things in my videos, some better than others. My channel is shite. I'm real about my channel. I know what it is and what it's about. Hopefully it's helped a few people, which is great. I've been battling my mental health issues. I've been struggling and stuff. Things have been going on. I've moved. I found out my real dad, who I found 6 years ago after 27 years. Apart from being a waste of space and a waste of time and a selfish man, I found out I had a brain tumour. My mum's not been too well. It's put things in perspective. It's put life in perspective, and realising that there's more to life than YouTube and like being isolated and locking myself away like a fucking hermit. It's not the best. It's probably... I've become like a lone wolf. And I know a lot of people and stuff like that, and I speak to a lot of people. But my love for it all has gone, for the YouTube stuff. And like I say, that's nothing against my subscribers. I've got some amazing subscribers. I've spoken to some amazing people over the years. Really, really grateful for them. I've put people in contact. I've set up interviews for the prisoners. I've given prisoners a voice. I've given prisoners' families a voice. I've even spoke up for prison officers in the past. But seeing what the mission of the Prison Officers Association is, I've rolled that back. Anyway, I'm back. I'm covering a death by dangerous driving. I'm going to read the story. I'm going to do my bit at the end, as I always do. Please feel free to put your comments in the comment section below. Link for the story will be in the description below, like I always do. I'm rusty as hell, guys. It's been a while, hasn't it, since we've done this. It's been a moment. We've done the lives and stuff. Yeah, I've done a few lives, but to actually do a vlog, a proper vlog in this format, it's been a while. So this is a court case, like I say, about a death by dangerous. Let me know what you think in the comment section below, because I've got strong feelings on this. Right, guys. So, stories in the Manchester Evening News, my local paper. The headline reads, "We will never forgive you. Fury of parents of Navy recruit who was run over and killed by a Champagne Charlie banker." Wayne Davies, who claims he thought he'd hit a bin bag in his Audi, walked free from court, having admitted causing the death of James Edward by careless driving and possessing Class A drugs. A corporate banker who ran over and killed a young Royal Navy recruit, dragging his body 105 metres, has walked free from court. Wayne Davies, 31, regarded as a Champagne Charlie, according to the Manchester Evening News sources, claimed he had thought he'd hit a bin bag. The devastated parents of his victim, James Edwards, God bless James Edwards, may he rest in peace, confronted their son's killer in court, telling him, "We will never forgive you." Moments later, the judge gave Davies a suspended prison sentence. Afterwards, Glyn and Jane Edwards admitted they were gutted he hadn't been jailed. The court heard Davies was driving home at 4 AM in his Audi A5 Quattro with a woman he had met in a Manchester city centre when he was struck James Hodge Edwards, 22, who was lying in the middle of the road after a night out on his own. James suffered fatal injuries when he was hit and then dragged for 105 metres under the Audi. His horrified girlfriend witnessed a tragic incident. Davies drove away and later told police he thought he'd hit a bin bag. Officers tracked him down by following a trail of coolant from the damaged radiator to his front door. Police found a wrap of cocaine hidden inside his phone. For 2 years, Davies denied his driving was careless. But on the eve of a retrial, Davies of Lyndhurst Avenue, Stockport, admitted causing death by dangerous driving and possessing Class A drugs. The tragedy in March of 2017 devastated the Edwards family. Judge John Potter told Davies, "Had your driving that night not fallen below the standards of a reasonable and competent driver, the death of James Edwards may have been avoided. He had seen the obstruction in the road and decided to drive over it at a speed of between 20 and 25 miles an hour. dragging Mr. Edwards' body 105 metres down the road before driving away, the judge said. Davies disgracefully made no attempt to investigate the obstruction, although there was evidence he had stopped later to examine the damage to his Audi, said Judge John Potter. James was 6 foot tall and weighed 13 stone 9 pounds. Mr. Edwards, known as Hodge, had been out celebrating his imminent posting to the Royal Navy the night he was killed. He had been drinking and was lying on a railway bridge on Bramhall Moor Lane in Hazel Grove, Stockport, when he was hit. He had been involved in an argument with his girlfriend who went home, but then returned to look for him in her Mini. She saw the moment he was hit by Davies. Davies showed no emotion in the dock. He was handed a 10-month suspended prison sentence in order to carry out 200 hours of unpaid work. He was made the subject of an electronic monetary curfew tag for 4 months and banned from driving for 4 years. Earlier, his victim's mother, Jane Edwards, a former practice nurse, stood in the witness box and looked over at the defendant as she delivered a withering attack. It's every mother's worst nightmare to lose a child, and this nightmare has happened to me. A part of me has died, and I can never get this back, she told the hearing, describing her son as a kind, considerate and loving son, loved by all, and he had a beautiful smile. His smile was something we will never see again because of the selfish actions of one person, Mrs. Edwards said. She described how the death had affected her marriage and said she still suffered harrowing thoughts of her son being dragged under Davies' car. Mrs. Edwards said she was incensed with the who had shown no remorse for what he'd done, as total disregard for human life, and was more interested in protecting himself. Davies had even tried to antagonise by drinking in a pub in Poynton, where the wake had been held, showing disregard and disrespect, Mrs. Edwards said. The defendant had even stared at her out in a supermarket when they bumped into each other, the court had heard. Despite being charged over the death, Davies had continued to parade his social life through his girlfriend's social media account, with photos from various locations, looking like he doesn't have a care in the world, she said. Looking at the defendant, she said her son had lived if the defendant had stopped and went on. I will never forgive you, Wayne Davies, for what you've done to me and my family. James's father, Glyn, 52, a retired police officer, also slammed the selfish, arrogant, criminal actions of Davies, adding that the thought of the defendant driving home for a one-night stand still repulses him. Looking at the dock, he said, I will never forgive you, Wayne Davies, never. The defendant had been out in bars in Manchester, including Panacea, The Alchemist and Neighbourhood, on the night of the crash. During the night, he was said to have met a woman, prosecutor Rob Hall told the court. Crash investigators followed the coolant which leaked from the Audi's damaged radiator. The trial led them to the defendant's home, but not before it went on a loop of a nearby housing estate, the court heard. Emergency services were at the scene within minutes, but Mr. Edwards died in hospital due to multiple injuries. After his arrest, Mr. Davies denied any knowledge of the crash, but later admitted he thought he hit a bin bag or a twig. Ben Smitten, defending, said his client was driving at 22 miles an hour on the correct side of the road. Mr. Davies accepts by his plea his part in this tragic episode, said Mr. Smitten, who added his client had been remorseful to probation officers, pre-sentence report, and apologised for his part in the episode through me. After hearing Mr. and Mrs. Edwards told the Manchester Evening News they were gutted, Davies had not been jailed but said it was not a lenient sentence. He deserved the prison sentence, but I can't understand the judge. But I can understand the judge, said Mr. Edwards. No mother should have to bury their child. In a victim impact statement read to the court, Jane Edwards said no parent should ever have to write a victim impact statement for their child. No mother should have to organise the funeral of her child or bury their child. It's the most horrendous thing that can happen to any mother. She said she'd spoken to her son for the last time the previous evening, and the next time she saw him was in the resuscitation department of Stepping Hill Hospital. On the way to hospital, she and her husband came across the scene of the accident by chance, not realising it was the location their son had been hit. They were escorted on a blue light run for the rest of the journey to the hospital, the court heard. I knew that something was badly wrong, Mrs. Edwards said. All I wanted to do was see my son and know what had happened to him and know his injuries were. To see him and to talk to him. It was only at the hospital that parents learned that their son had suffered significant injuries. When Mrs. Edwards saw her son, his eyes were glazed and his sheets were bloodstained. It's something no one should have to see, never mind a mother looking at her son. All a mother wants to do is hold their child, she said. Mrs. Edwards said that this was the moment her heart physically shattered. The court ordered that the parents were not allowed to touch James as it was effectively a crime scene, except to hold his hand. Now, when she closes her eyes, she said she can see her son's eyes as they were that night, while knowing the pain he must have felt makes me cry. My son's death has totally shattered my life and that of my family, she said. She sometimes sprays his favourite aftershave on her so she can recall his scent the court heard. Her son had just been accepted into the Royal Navy and was so proud of him. All I have left of my son is the memories of him and a gravestone to look at, she wrote. She said the driver had been selfish and arrogant. I will never forgive him or his actions, she said. Right, that's the story, guys. Now, obviously, my thoughts and prayers are obviously with the victims' friends and family. This was in 2017, right? Let's look at the case, right? Now, he'd been drinking, right? This Wayne Davies had been drinking all over Manchester. Panacea, expensive, neighbourhood alchemist, right? Then he went into Stockport, right? He was known as a Champagne Charlie, right? Which is a party boy, drinks, sniffs cocaine, not necessarily having to sniff cocaine, but drinking, living the high life, Champagne Charlie lifestyle, right? He was driving. I'm going to guess he was drinking. I'm going to bet my life on it that he was drinking. Probably under the influence of cocaine because some was found in his mobile phone case as well. He hit somebody, thought it was a twig. A twig, you wouldn't, when you go over a body, not that I've ever been over a body, but the car's going to it's like going over a speed bump, innit? He dragged his body for 105 metres, right? He then made off from the scene. Oh, it was a bin bag, it was a twig. Denied all knowledge of the accident, hit somebody, was probably under the influence of alcohol and drugs, left the scene of an accident without reporting it, right, to go and get his leg over, right? When the police eventually located him and stuff, probably breathalyzed him and stuff and give him a drugs test. Obviously, nothing must have been in his system, or they didn't do it until the next day, or whatever the case might have been. They might have done it the next day when the alcohol had been out of his system and the drugs had come out of his system as well. I don't know how long coke stays in your system for. But the fact that cocaine was on his person, you've got to look and believe that he was under the influence of alcohol and drugs. Hit somebody, right? Obviously, the young lad, James Edwards, had been on a night out, had had an argument with his missus and was, for some reason, was lying in the middle of the road. But if you had your wits about you and you was driving that slow, you would see a body in the road if he wasn't impaired by alcohol or drugs. Why he was in the middle of the road, no one will ever know. Obviously, he might have just been drunk and fallen there. But this guy hit somebody, made off from the scene, failed to report the accident, was denied any knowledge of the accident, trying to protect himself and stuff, trying to get his leg over. All he was asked about is getting home and getting his leg over. He's been given a suspended sentence, guys. A suspended sentence. You tell me something, right? How does somebody hit somebody, drag the body for 105 metres, probably was under the influence of alcohol or drugs, but they couldn't prove it, right? Makes off from the scene of an accident, fails to report the accident, denies all knowledge of it, doesn't hand himself into the police. The police have to trace him via a coolant trail that went round the houses. Then even when he got to his, he went round in a loop and then came back, and the police followed it, found him. Right, so all them things into play, right? He even went to the weight, like he went to this pub where the weight was being held. He might have seen it on social media or something. Went to the pub. I don't think on the day of the week, obviously, but he wasn't remanded. He was kept out on bail. Like I said, I don't like people being put in prison unnecessarily. Showed no remorse for his actions at all. Stared the mother out in the supermarket, right? Thinking he was above the law or something. This guy. And I've been in prison with people that haven't paid council tax or parking fines, right? Getting 28 days and stuff. The kid killed somebody, fucked off from the scene to go and get his leg over, was probably under the influence of alcohol and drugs, right? Denied all knowledge of the accident, didn't report the accident. The police had to track him down, right, for all intensive purposes, right? So, and then it sounds like he'd been retried, so like on jury or whatever the case may be, like goes on a second fucking trial, right? Denied it, and on the eve of the trial, right, pleads guilty. So he wouldn't have got his third off unless the judge was very lenient and give him a third off. If you plead guilty here in the UK, at the earliest opportunity, you get a third off whatever the potential sentence is going to be. I'm sorry, but that's an insult. That's adding insult to injury. Right? He got 200 hours community service. Right? They give him a pre-sentence report. Right? And then on top of that, they give him a suspended sentence, guys, for a life. If he would have stopped at the scene and he would have tried to give him CPR and would have rang an ambulance and stayed with the bod there, fair enough. But the reason he left the accident, in my opinion, as an ex-con, is because he had a guilty conscience. He was under the influence of alcohol. He was under the influence of drugs. He probably panicked and thought, well, I've got this bird in the car, and probably went away, had sex with that bird, knowing full well what he did. Or he was that out of it, he didn't know what he did. But given it was a bin, it was a twin, it was a twig. He even stopped further down the road to check the damage to his car. Bin bags, soft little things, depending on what's in them. But like I say, or a twig. Is someone kidding me? A twig. Right? A family have been shattered here. It sounds like the marriage is possibly broken down. Right? The kids show no remorse. Right? The father, as an ex-copper, was very understanding. Oh, I can see where the judge is coming from. Excuse me, I'm an ex-con. I don't want anyone going to jail, but this fucker deserves to go to prison. Deserves to go to prison. Massively deserves to go to prison. Do you know what I mean? I've been in prison with a couple of kids that have been done for death by dangerous. 4 years, 5 years. They're out in 2.5. They're out in 2, depending if they get 4 or 5. Right? This kid thought it was above the law. If this was a kid from a council estate that was from Wythenshawe or an estate in Birmingham or some rough estate, manor estate or something in Sheffield or London or whatever, a kid that wasn't a fucking banker and a fucking champagne Charlie with a great job and no education, right, and was from a council estate or a black lad, right, what would have been the sentence, guys? He would have got jail. This motherfucker didn't get jail. If I'm the family of Wayne Davies, God bless him, may he rest in peace, I would be challenging this as unfairly lenient. That means that this sentence is too lenient for the offence. Now, like I say, sadly, if you've got, right, obviously this is different because this was on a night out and stuff, but it just goes to show that death by dangerous is a minor offence in the eyes of the court. If you look at the sentences that are passed down to death by dangerouses, they're quite small. They're quite small. Like I say, 4 or 5 years. I've seen, you can get 7, 6. I've seen more. Do you know what I mean? Depending on the circumstances, everyone's circumstances is different. But if you've got an issue with somebody, right, away from this, if you've got an issue with someone and you want to kill them, don't go up to them and blow their head off with a shotty. Just get in your car, have a few drinks, and just fucking hit them. Like, wait for them, run them over, reverse over them, and make off from the scene, and get off pissed up. Get done for death by dangerous. You're getting a minor. It's a minor. Joke. Absolute joke. Anyway, guys, going to leave it there. Pictures at the start, link in the description below. Few days left, 4 subscribers, and then bam, we're gone. Thank you for all your subscriptions and stuff, all your time. Sorry for the story was so long. I didn't think it was going to be as long as it was. God bless the families of Wayne Davies and stuff. God bless him. James Edwards, you're a scumbag, mate. All right, leave it there. Like, comment, subscribe. Cody out.